Hello! I have cultivated this look for this specific video for a very specific reason. I look very disheveled. I have a very big beard that really needs some clipping. I could probably use a haircut. I'm wearing a t-shirt backwards. And I'm doing this all for a very specific reason. I'm also doing a stream of consciousness. I don't have a script for this because I've lived this for just over 33 years now. And I'm going to try to put it in words that make sense to most, if not all people, because I think there's a lot of red tape in some respects that governs how this whole phenomenon is seen. And I think it's a good idea to cut through that red tape and actually get to the core of the issue here. The title of this video is I Am the Other, and at least that's my going title. I might change it in post. Anyway, I Am the Other is essentially the sentence that I'm basing this whole entire rant around. Rant is not quite the right word. Explanation, tutorial, TED Talk, whatever you want to call it. But it's mostly going to be me talking. If that's a problem, you can leave now. What do I want to talk about? I want to talk about the otherness of people with a disability in general. People who are blind specifically, because I am familiar with that target audience. I myself am blind. You may have missed that, but it's very obvious if you look at me for longer than 20 seconds. Yeah, I'm a fully blind person. And this channel was made, it's called Viewpoint Unseen, and it was made to represent that viewpoint that often goes unseen, and not unseen by me. It's not a pun, haha, per se. It's unseen by everybody else. When I picked that name, the idea was to represent that viewpoint. And I think this is my first attempt at trying to do that explicitly. Like, I've done a few videos on making things specifically for the blind, making blind people access certain things, but this is me representing that actual viewpoint, and I think it might be educational for some people. So when I say other, I mean that slight discomfort that most people feel, I think, when they look at a blind person or a disabled person in general. It's that mix of, should I feel empathetic? Should I feel pity? To what degree do I share space with this person mentally? Like, what do I talk about with this person? What can I ask this person? What should I stay away from with this person? And that is a very interesting transaction, because that's also happening to us. We don't know if you're going to be one of the people who wants to pray for us, or who wants to walk on eggshells around us, or would like to take decisions out of our hands and decide that we are not worth listening to. There's a whole bunch of handshakes that happen mentally that no one mentions, and that I think should be made clear. And there's a number of things that contribute to that, and I'm going to go into those in a second. But I myself am one of those people that, I guess, because of where I grew up and when I grew up, I tend to essentially blast through most of these handshakes very quickly. I am very open. I do not really care if people ask me questions. If someone asks me something I have a problem with, I will tell them, and we move on with our lives. A lot of people are not like that. A lot of people feel offended. A lot of people feel hurt by certain questions. It reminds them of their otherness. It reminds them of their weakness. Viewed through their lens, it reminds them of the fact that they are different than the person asking is. And that is a bit of a problem, and that's a problem because it creates this artificial divide between people who can see and people who cannot see. I personally do not like the term sighted person, because of that exact same reason. It highlights that difference very starkly. You are a sighted person. I am a blind person. The two may not coexist. We are in different realities. And to a degree, that's true. There is absolutely a bridge to be built there, a bridge to be forged. And anyone who says different is deluding themselves. Sorry, that might be coming across a little harsh, but it's true. There is a large difference between people who have a disability of any kind and people who don't. And it has to do with privilege, it has to do with accessibility, it has to do with a certain way you view or experience the world versus somebody else's view. That's also true for a lot of other differences, not just disability. That's true for, heck, that's true for gender sometimes. That's true for skin color. That's true for income scale. That's true for a number of different things, but it's also true for people with a disability. And just trying to hand wave that and saying everything should be equal is not the play. I just don't think it is. Accessibility is not that. Accessibility is a bridge that we forge to bridge those differences. We put in effort to include as many different kinds of people as we can. And that's not just disabled people. Again, accessibility could be financial accessibility. It could be making things cheaper. It could be accessibility by using simpler words or by using a server that is in a specific location as opposed to another location that may have tighter restrictions on what is accessible and what is not. Accessibility is a very broad term, and digital accessibility is just part of that pie. The reason I'm going into this is because there is a number of things that heighten this divide, I feel. Like I said, the word sighted person to me is one of those things. Another thing is blind specific, and in this case I'm speaking for the blind, but I'm sure this is also true for a lot of other disabilities, so I'm speaking what I know here. I think this is also true for a lot of blind specific services, resources, and spaces. And the reason I say that is because it highlights and it amplifies that otherness in a very subtle way. Essentially what happens is once you create, say, a space for only blind people, where people who are blind gravitate towards, what happens is you create an echo chamber, basically. People talk to each other and only to each other. It's a very comfortable feeling to not have to explain a lot of different things. It's a very comfortable feeling to be among your people. But that's an illusion, ultimately. You're not among your people. You're among a bunch of people who happen to share a common ground, which is being blind in this specific case. And for some people, that's good. For some people, that's enough to have a healthy and successful life. And I'm not here to shit on that. I'm absolutely not here to give these people a hard time. What I'm saying is that doing that will increase this otherness. And it mostly does that through not having a shared lexicon of culture, of say, memes, shared terms, shows that you may both have seen, events that have happened in certain spaces that the other space wasn't a part of. That can be either way. It creates essentially a microcosm of blindness, or insert any disability here, that is known to the people who are in that space and not to anybody else. And what that eventually leads up to, I think, is when you do meet a person who's not in that space, what ends up happening is you have nothing to talk about. This person's going to ask you about games you've never heard of. This person's going to talk to you about a picture they saw in a newspaper you cannot read. This person is going to talk to you about devices they use or apps they prefer or anything of the sort, and you're going to give them a poorly aimed blank stare because you have no idea what they're even on about. And I think that highlights, again, that otherness. The thing with that otherness, though, is that I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. It's just considered so by a lot of people, and that's sad. That is really just a sign of the times, I think. We don't put in that effort anymore. Both sides of us don't put in effort to forge that bridge to essentially cross the divide. And that's a shame, because you're missing so many potential bonds, so many potential friendships, so many potential events, memories, all sorts of things that you could have were you to be part a little bit more of each other's world. I had this discussion earlier today with someone. We were talking about cinema and essentially the way TV shows are being filmed and are being mic'd up. And if you ever want a really interesting look at that divide I just mentioned in a very tangible way, take a look at how the audio of a general like drama is being recorded as opposed to the cinematics, the camera angles, the way that a face is being given a close-up treatment when this person is speaking. How we have a sense of distance, a sense of depth and space within the visual side of a movie or TV show, rather, where the audio might be entirely flat. I think this is a really interesting, I guess, almost abstract way of holding up a mirror and showing us just what that divide looks like. There are things that a blind person is not going to know about even when they watch a movie. There's also things that people who are not blind are going to miss about things that we pick up on, because that's just not top of mind. A movie is called a movie because that stands for moving picture. You're looking at the picture. The audio is always going to be secondary. It's not an audio drama, it's a movie. So when the moving picture disappears and you only get the audio, even with audio description, which is, again, a bridge that tries to unite these two worlds, you're missing a whole lot of visual information. And that's just because there's not enough time to convey it all. And that's fine. You can still enjoy the same work the same way. It's just that those enjoyment experiences are going to diverge. And again, that is fine because there is a shared how do I put that? There is a shared foundation you're both diverging from, that being the plot of the movie. You have a shared space that you can meet in and talk about the movie in. That doesn't happen when, for example, you close yourself, and this is essentially talking to blind people, you close yourself to alternative ways of doing things from what you've been taught or what you know. A great example of this, I think, is the concept of the X for the blind kind of moniker. A lot of the times when I see people struggle with certain things, say learning how to code, because I'm a geek and I have to use that as an example. Say a blind person is learning how to code. There's essentially two classes of people that try this. One will cross the divide. What they will do is they will take a resource that was not specifically made for them and they'll make it work somehow. These people are generally a bit more successful. I'll get into why in a second. Then there is also the other class, which essentially doesn't touch anything that hasn't been essentially labeled blind specific, accessibility specific, or made for the blind. That used to be very, very few things. And that is because we are a very small part of a very small part of a pie. Like, we are the disabled, sure, but we are also a small part of that slice of society, as it were. Fully blind people like myself are not even the majority in blind people, as in what the US calls blind people. I am on the firm opinion that blind means no usable vision, but that's not a hill I want to die on today. Anyway, we are a small part of a pie. And that means that the specific resources that are made specifically for blind people are very small in number. And that's generally fine, because a screen reader, the tool that we use to actually use a computer, has been made to bridge that divide and use resources that exist for non-blind people. However, sometimes, and this is where the problem begins, these resources are not fully 100% accessible. There might be pictures without alt text. There might be videos with very poor narration. There might be code editors embedded into services that just don't work super well with screen readers. And any of these things, quite rightly, will turn people off and stick them back in blind land, basically. This right here is why I work on accessibility tools. It's not because legal reasons. It's not because I want to cover companies' asses and make sure they don't get sued. It's because I see this happen every single day. I see this happen when someone tries to buy their significant other a gift. I see this happen when someone's mom wants to share a video on, say, a platform that's not accessible and they cannot join the discussion. I see this happen when someone is playing a game and they can't join in. And the same is true for all sorts of disabilities. Like, this happens when your group of friends wants to go to a restaurant and you don't have a ramp to get in there with your wheelchair. Just the exact same barrier, the exact same dead stop for a lot of people. And that is, again, that otherness not being bridged. It's a wall between these people and the rest of society. And that really sucks to bump into. There is two classes of people who deal with these kinds of issues. One class throws everything. Excuse me, my nose is itching. One group of people throws everything they can at the problem in order to still participate. I'm part of that group. Asking for help is essentially what I do when I have exhausted every other option, because it, even in a small way, burdens another person for no real discernible reason. And again, it highlights the otherness. It shows me being an alien. It shows me not being plugged in to the rest of the machinery that everybody else is plugged into. And accessibility is that plug. If the plug is not there, you're not plugged in, you're not participating, you're not part of the world at that specific second you bump into this issue. The reason I said that it used to be a very small part of the pie is because that landscape has changed quite a bit. And it's honestly left things very chaotic. Basically what's happened is AI happened, and AI can, with enough dedication and perseverance, be used as a lever to make the inaccessibility machine run. And that means that you can, provided you have enough time, resources, money, and patience, create some kind of disability dongle, I want to say, to make something work for you. Takes effort, takes time, takes a lot of work a lot of the time, but it can be done. So now what's happening is that need to not burden other people, to not ask for help, has ballooned into a need to essentially ask the non-feeling, non-thinking AI that cannot be burdened to make you tools that allow you to participate. And that is not a good thing. That honestly highlights that we as a society have failed. We are using a planet-destroying technology to essentially bridge the gap that humans could not be arsed to fix. That's where we are right now. And the otherness of this is honestly headache-inducing. It is so preventable in so many ways, and it is just not being prevented. So that's why this channel exists. That's why Viewpoint Unseen is the name of this channel. What I want to do, apart from scratching my nose, is highlight this otherness, explain this otherness, and then bridge the otherness. Because we are not equal. I don't know if we'll ever be equal. I'd like to think we will be, but we're not. And that is dreadfully depressing, but we're not. And I don't have the solution. We've tried with legal force, we've tried with fines, we've tried with think of the people, think of the children. And the otherness of not having to worry about, say, a blind person because you don't know any blind people is enough to just not worry at all. As an accessibility professional, I have worked in many places, in various different teams, with various different levels of willingness to bridge the gap and add accessibility to their stuff. I'm a software developer, I'm a website developer, I'm an accessibility auditor, so I have seen every side of things. And two lessons that knows, I'm going to switch it out, two lessons have come out of me doing that. And this video is already getting way longer than I intended it to, so I'll stop here soon. But I want to highlight these two lessons before I go. One lesson is when it becomes personal, the otherness is in a way bridged, because you have now proven by, for example, sitting down with a developer and showing that you are a human that is traversing their inaccessible website and having trouble. You're just a person. You're a person that they are deliberately excluding by not following standards that have existed for decades. That is the first lesson. It's a lesson that I'd love to teach to more people. One other reason why this channel exists. And it's a lesson that I think is the one weapon, the one power we have as fully blind individuals to make our voice heard. It's not yelling at customer support reps, they can't help it. It's not yelling on social media, people don't care. It's not even going up to LinkedIn and finding the CEO. He has a lot of stuff to do. He's not going to read your stuff. The only way is to get to the people behind the curtain, as it were, and open their eyes. And that's a really, really deliberate pun, because that's literally the only thing we can do. The tricky bit is getting to those people, because they often won't let you get a foot in the door. Again, the otherness is taking over that whole entire conversation. If you email, say, a dev team that you found on LinkedIn, they may very well just ignore you, because you're not a person. You're a number. You're one person that's not a person, that's complaining about something that works for everybody else, so you're the problem, not them. That's how it works. It's incredibly unfair. It's incredibly unkind. But that's where we are right now. That's where we are in 2026. If people ask me, have accessibility improved? No. No, I'm seeing the exact same thing I saw 25 years ago. And that's not saying that no improvements have been made. Of course, there have been improvements. The screen readers have gotten smarter. Websites have gotten better sometimes, but people haven't. And that's, I think, where the big issue is. People have not improved. And it's not just the developers either. Like, we're not necessarily only talking about developers. Developers are only one chain, like link in this chain. Developers get their marching orders from higher up a lot of the time. Even in smaller companies, there is product owners, there's product managers, there is the manager, and then there's the CFO, or the financial decider of all things. And if they say it's not happening, then you can yell at a developer as much as you like. It's not going to happen. They can try to lobby for you, they can try to advocate for you, but if the money tap doesn't get opened, it's not happening, because no one works for free. I don't either. Heck, these YouTube videos are a passion project. But if I can monetize this shit, heck, I'm gonna. Anyway, that's lesson one. Lesson two is honestly really depressing. But lesson two is that some people still just cannot be helped. I have worked as a fully blind consultant, a fully blind auditor, professional, subject matter expert, whatever you want to call it. And I've essentially been flat out told, listen, this is too much work. We can't do this. We'll not be sued if we don't do this. And that's when getting personal, when it just doesn't help. Turn away. Find people who are actually worth being called that and work with them instead. If you get into a room with a bunch of people, and you tell them your plight. You tell them essentially, listen, you're excluding a bunch of people. You're being discriminatory towards people. You are deliberately and willingly excluding people because you are just not willing to, again, follow protocols that have been in place for decades now. And they just sort of shrug at you and go that the settlement is cheaper than actually fixing it, then you're not among your people. You should leave. The otherness has won. Try with a different group of people. And that is extremely debilitating. It can be very demotivating because essentially when it happens as an advocate, you're essentially being told both professionally and personally that what you are saying and what you need does not matter. It's not important enough to bother with. And that is extremely dreadfully sad. I could go on for this for hours, honestly. There's a lot of parts to this. There's a lot of things. But I would love to take this to the comments. Like, if people have their thoughts on this, I would love to see it sound off. A couple of like potential things you could go into is, for example, blind-specific devices as opposed to laptops or iPhones. Blind-specific learning resources, the connection between accessibility and ease of use, and usability and user experience, which are all very different things, and the essentially the need for AI tooling to replace what really should be done by humans that has become rampant over the last year, primarily because so many people are just done being considered so insignificant that no one's going to spend time on them, that they're doing it themselves, with a lot of consequences as a consequence. There's a lot of things that are happening, way too much to go into in one video, but this is essentially me explaining why the channel exists. The content plans haven't changed. I want to share this unseen viewpoint about a number of things. Tech reviews, software reviews. I might do some accessibility auditing to show how that works. Reactions to blindness representation, maybe. There's a whole bunch of plans I have. And it's all starting with this random rambly video, a very bearded, very shaggy, scruffy looking dude talking at a camera for like half an hour. And yeah, that's what we're doing. I'm not going to edit this. I want this to be raw. I want this to essentially be a stream of consciousness. That's very likely going to mean I don't get many views. The shaggy look is going to turn people off. And it's meant to. Because I want to highlight the otherness. I want to show people how quickly a preconceived notion can settle in. You see unkept bum face? You're not going to talk to me. You're not going to listen to me. That's fine. I don't care. When, my videos become a bit more polished, I can refer to this video and say, this is where it started. This is what you ignored. And with that, the rain has started and the lightning has begun. Perfect ending. Perfect time to end this. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe to the channel. It helps a lot. Like and comment on this video. That also helps a lot. You don't have to pay me money. That's fine. What I want to do is reach more people, not make more money. That's my main concern here. I do games, I do hacking, I do all sorts of other tech stuff, but most of all, I represent the viewpoint that goes unheard, the viewpoint that goes unseen, the viewpoint that is too other for people to keep in their mind. For now, this has been me. I hope this was helpful. And have a good day. Goodbye.